your dreams.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Genshin Impact video, and today I'm just going to be talking about the story in Fontaine. So if you haven't done the story yet, you should probably leave because I am going to be spoiling it in this video. By the way, if you happen to like the content, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. So the story in Fontaine is actually pretty fantastic. When I was first spoiled it on 4chan, I read through it. I thought it was kind of dumb at first, but you know, experiencing the story firsthand, playing it, it was actually really great. The writers for this team must have blown up their fingers writing up the story because it was that good. At least in my opinion anyways. I was kind of expecting the story to be kind of dull and boring since it would involve the Fontaine's judicial system, but it was actually a lot more funner than I thought it would, especially when you were doing that that mini game, that mini game during like the story. You know what I'm talking about, right? You basically like refute the other person's like evidence with your own evidence, and it was a really fun time. I've never played an Ace Attorney game before or any judicial type game ever, so it was a pretty interesting experience. Anyways, the story starts off with you meeting Lynette by herself, talking to herself about how Fontaine's gonna drown, everyone's gonna die, and the Hydro Archon will be by her lonesome. And then her brother Lenny appears and they introduce themselves as magicians. We go to Fontaine, and the third playable character we meet is the Hydro Archon herself, who has been waiting for us. I kind of was not expecting to meet the Hydro Archon so soon, but it happens, and I gotta say, she might be my favorite Archon in the game. She is so over the top and silly, it's ridiculous, and she acts like a brat. I really want to correct this bitch. Anyways, the Hydro Archon tries to challenge us because apparently we broke a law with Paimon being a floating object, and we're not allowed to have floating objects in Fontaine, except if they're a balloon, because Linny steps up and claims that Paimon is not a floating object that's launched illegally. She is a balloon held by the Traveler. So the Hydro Archon fucks off after this humiliating defeat, and Linny basically invites us to his magic show. We go to the magic show, we get front row seats, we meet Novelette. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anyway, Novelette is a pretty cool character. I really like his design. I really like his demeanor in the court. He might actually be one of my new favorite male characters because he just seems like an overall chill character. I'm actually tempted to pull for him in the next patch because apparently his playstyle is pretty similar to Scaramouche. I do find Scaramouche pretty fun to play. Anyways, during Linny's magic show, something goes wrong. One of his assistants, an NPC, I forgot the name of the NPC. It was like Crowler or Crowley or something. Crowley dies, and one of the audience members that gets picked to be a part of the show ends up being missing. And since the Hydro Archon was also watching the magic show, she basically accuses Linny of killing the assistant and kidnapping the girl. And so the Traveler steps up and becomes an attorney for Linny in order to challenge the Hydro Archon again in court, even though the Traveler has no law experience or has never been to like law school before. So we gotta find clues around the crime scene in order to prove Linny's innocence, and we end up meeting up with Navia. I really like what Hoyoverse did with Navia's character. I think they did a pretty good job writing it out. Anyways, Navia decides to join us to help prove Linny's innocence because Linny's case is kind of similar to the disappearing girls case that's been happening in Fontaine for quite a few years now. We eventually learn that Linny and Lynette are actually part of the Fatui, the House of Hearth, led by Arlecchino. Linny did this magic show in order to investigate the Oratrice, which is like the judge, the artificial AI judge of the courtroom in Fontaine. We learn a little bit more about Arlecchino through Linny. Apparently Arlecchino might not be as evil as we thought she would be, because apparently she's trying to save Fontaine from the prophecy of the Fontaine citizens getting drowned out. This is coming from Linny himself. For all we know, this could be a farce that Arlecchino is doing. She might have evil intentions for all we know. I mean, just look at her design. Her design kind of screams evil. I mean, she's got like eyes and shit in her clothes. But you can't judge a book by its cover, so she might actually be good. I don't know why the Traveler was like so angry towards Lynn and Lynette for being part of the Fatui. especially since before the magic show we met up with Child, a Fatui harbinger, and we were having a conversation with him like we were old buddies, but yet the Traveler was treating Lynn and Lynette like they were pieces of shit. Although you can say the Traveler is still kind of wary of Child in some way, because whenever Child shows up, we basically assume, you know, some shit's gonna go down, and it eventually does. Anyway, since Lenny was too busy investigating the Oratrice, there's no way he could have killed the assistant and kidnapped the girl. With the help of Navia, we later discover that Lenny's assistant was actually part of a drug dealing gang that also happens to use the drug to kidnap girls by dissolving them into water. And Navia also finds the missing girl. It turns out that the missing girl was actually the thief that Lenny was onto earlier into the story. So when the thief was randomly selected from the audience to join in the magic show, she actually thought that Lenny was onto her, so that's why she basically went into hiding during the magic show. While she was trying to hide, Lenny's assistant was confused on why the girl wasn't dissolved and basically tried to kidnap her. The thief knocks him out. The thief puts him in the box, and when the water tank from above comes crashing down, it kills the assistant. So the three parties in this case basically all had three different motives going on. Lenny was trying to investigate the Oratrice, the assistant was trying to dissolve girls, and the thief was just trying to hide because she thought that Lenny was onto her. But thanks to Navia, Lenny's innocence has been proven, and that's basically it. Act 2 involves Navia way more. We basically help her investigate this drug dealing gang in Fontaine that deals this drug called the Primordial Sea. That word brings back a lot of memories from Pokemon because Primal Kyogre's ability is Primordial Sea. Anyways, the Traveler didn't want to investigate this case with Navia because the Traveler doesn't really give a shit. That's kind of what I like about the Traveler. They kind of don't really give a shit. They only get involved in stuff because they just get sucked in. So anyways, the Traveler gets sucked in because Paimon was drinking Primordial Sea from a bottle that was meant for Navia instead. So the assassin thought that we intended to stop that, but we actually didn't. We accidentally stopped it. Anyways, I think Navia is a pretty fantastic character. We have a clear vision of her motives of investigating the case. She's investigating this case because her father died from investigating this case, so she figured solving this case will bring her some closure about her father, and it eventually does. But with Navia, we're trying to find the mastermind of the Primordial Sea because the mastermind basically sends mechs to assassinate the Traveler. So we try to find out how they amass all those mechs. We eventually learn from one of Navia's trusted assistants that there could be a traitor among Navia's faction, and we basically investigate the three potential subjects that could be the traitor. We eventually find out that it was Navia's uncle that was the true traitor. Not only is the uncle the traitor, but they were also the mastermind behind the Primordial Sea. Uncle basically did this drug dealing thing in order to find out more on how he can revive his wife, since his wife was dissolved from the Primordial Sea. I also forgot to mention that Tartaglia was accused of the one that's dissolving the young women in Fontaine. Even though we find the true mastermind, Child still gets sent to prison anyway due to the fact that the Oratrice deems him guilty. And since the Fontaine's courtroom basically follows what this AI says, they basically have to follow along. Also, the mastermind's soul ends up getting drowned by the other women that were dissolved by him. Apparently, all the women that were dissolved basically merged into one Oceanid, and they basically killed the dude. In conclusion, this story is pretty fantastic. This story managed to keep my attention, and I really liked the mechanic of the whole evidence thing going on in the story. Characters are all really great. I really like Novelette. I really like the Hydro Archon. I really like Navia. Hell, even Navia's assistants were pretty good. They were kind of goofy characters. Hopefully, the next story won't be a letdown. I do have my expectations low. That's going to be the end of this video. Let me know what you guys think about Fontaine's story, and I will see you guys later.